again to another episode of Strictly Healthy. And, what are we dealing with today? Well, we're always dealing with topics to do with our health and things that affect us emotionally, mentally, physically. And, we have to look at financial as well because we're going to be hit by probably a bit of a recession at some point. So that's going to certainly affect us emotionally. So that today, though, what we're dealing with is issues around menopause and how that's affecting us, what we can do about it, and a few tips hopefully we can help and share today that will help you in some way or another. Now, we have a couple of guests on today, which is different from what we normally do. And these are, I want to welcome you both in. There you are. So we've got, I've muted you. Let me unmute you. So we've got Alison, and I'll get you to say your surname, and Hope. Okay. And they're both here today. They're from Live Life For Me. And they've been dealing with a lot to do with menopause, and you have various courses, etc., that you're offering people. But today, what we want to focus on is how we can help the audience and those listening, because I'm sure a lot will listen on replay, how we can best deal with menopause, what tips you have, what solutions, etc. So I'll get you both individually to just introduce yourselves a bit and tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started in this, etc. Go for it, Alison.
Shall I start? Yeah, so it's Dika, Alison. Yeah. Dika. So there we go. It's a Norse surname. Bit of a Viking. Oh, I can't find my camera. No, I've got a bit of a Viking anyway. So there we go. So so my background is I am probably from the field of more like management training, interpersonal skills, which led on to kind of coaching and mentoring and the whole looking at all kind of different things. And then as I went through my own menopause, what I rediscovered, actually, I discovered Anne at this point because she was my homeopath at this point. And I felt that I just rediscovered my creativity all around that kind of time. So I'm quite into what lies beyond, if you like, what lies beyond menopause, because it is only a transition. It's only a kind of 4-year transition, one healthy state to another healthy state. And then we're in probably the last third of our life and we should be enjoying it. So I kind of came from that. And I'll let Anne talk about because she's the other half of the equation.
Right. Okay. So Anne, please, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself. Tell me a little bit about your background, how you got started in working with Alison.
Okay. Well, I'm a homeopath, and I've been working with women with hormonal issues. We particularly started in clinic 22 years ago, working with women with hormonal problems, IVF, fertility issues. And in amongst that, we found that an awful lot of women were suffering not only at the beginning of their hormonal life with fertility, but at the end of their hormonal life with menopause. So clinically, I've dealt with hundreds of women that were struggling and stuck in menopause, helping them come through it. And exactly as Alison was saying, there's this whole, we need to get into this and survive it and swim all the time in it. Whereas actually, if we can move people from one healthy state through menopause, there's this whole gateway into a beautiful third of the rest of our life, which is the most important thing. So I've got involved in that side of it, helping women go through this time. And I think if you're looking at, what I would do is, first of all, point out that there's this whole world that is important to get to rather than just plugging it with HRT and just trying to keep our youth. We want to actually move through it and enjoy moving through it. What we advocate is planning, looking at things, getting to know yourself, getting to know your own hormonal life. And that's kind of where we set the clinic. So my background is much more clinical of helping women through this stage.
Well, that is fabulous. That sounds really good today. So I think we've got a rounded out view. I've got a couple of people asking questions as well. So hopefully we'll sort of get a few answers today. Because there's a lot of, no, not misinformation, but a lot of different ideas coming out of what's going on with menopause, how to deal with it, how to treat it, etc. So one of the questions I wanted to ask is, I guess it's for you, what is the number one symptom that you get requested or get complaints about?
Well, it's very interesting because people are looking for the number one, and people will say hot flushes, those sorts of things. But actually, I think the number one problem that comes to us in clinic is I didn't realize this was menopausal. So it's almost when somebody is broken down and they've been broken for a while and then they get hot flushes, that's where we see it. So one of the things that we're really interested in is awareness that this might happen, and it could be anything. So when I went through my menopause, which was probably about 15 years ago, I was taught that my number one symptom was going to be the bleed stopping. That was what I was looking for, the bleed changing, the bleed stopping. But actually, that's one of the last things to happen. And hot flushes really only become problematic once the menopause has got problematic. So I would probably say to you, yes, hot flushes, but really we would like to see people take control of their menopause before they get hot flushes so that they can actually look at it and see it. And just as a small aside, and I hope I'm not going off topic, I'm sure you'll pick me up if I do, is we have there seems to be a sudden movement because of all of this sudden movement. There's a lot of movement, and they're putting very, very young women on HRT just in case, and almost preventing people getting to know their life and their hormones and actually seeing the problems. So I think I would suggest that people get to know their hormonal life and know it, and notice if they suddenly start feeling lots of smaller symptoms such as brain fog, losing their memory, feeling a little bit of a lack of confidence, perhaps their body shape is changing, they're feeling a little bit dissatisfied. These are all sort of first signs of menopause. And then the problems come when things are going way, way out of proportion. So we would like to nip it before that. And so people can take control right from the beginning. Just exactly like puberty. When you see a young girl, you don't wait for them to be suffering. It's like, this doesn't look good. Let's do something about it at this point. So we can pick it up right from the beginning.
Yes. So, that's really a good point. And there's perimenopause as well. This is probably why people don't realize, that they're going through or starting the menopause stage because they're still having their periods, etc. So they don't think that that's part of menopause.
Exactly. This is their periods are still regular. And the amount of times I've seen that, and I've seen people with really, really high FSH levels, which would indicate that they're well into menopause, but they're still bleeding regularly. So no one's taking them very seriously. So I would look at all of those. And the trouble with this is it often coincides with teenage children, problems paying the bills because they're very expensive, perhaps elderly parents. So lots of other issues that are going on in the family, and the woman just thinks, I'm not coping very well, I'm at work and I'm struggling, I've got children. So there's a lot of things going on in life that women in particular will blame themselves as not being good enough to cope with it, or they're not coping with life sufficiently well.
I think it's interesting for me, because I went back and I talked to my husband about this, because the only symptom I can remember was the hot flushes, and I'd used homeopathy before, it worked for me, I tried it again, that's how I met Anne, it worked. And I said to him, did I have mood swings, and anything like that? And he went, well, at the time when you were probably in perimenopause, we were moving from the States back to England, and you were changing your job, and we had to deal with all this stuff. So it was a pretty volatile time of life anyway. So it's like just trying to you can't work out what is that. Is that the menopause? Sometimes it gets obscured like everything else that's going on.
Yes. So this is why, this is great to have you on today, because you're able to help us find out what the signs are for menopause, which you've mentioned some of them already: hot flushes, brain fog, memory, a bit of memory loss, body shape changing, etc. Those are some of the things.
There's some of the things.
Host of them.
I would say one of the early symptoms is actually a bit of a lack of confidence, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of, I used to be able to cope, now I'm struggling with little things. And I think that that's something that people should just be aware of and look at, rather than put it down to a failure for not coping with everything. It's something that changes with the hormones, that we lose that little bit of fight, that little bit of energy, that little bit of like, I'm going to work today and I hope it's not too bad, or I'm meeting the boss, I hope I'll be good enough. And you think, I didn't used to feel like that. I used to be like, I don't care. And if you're noticing small changes, honestly, the big physical things happen much further on. So it's just looking at small things, sleeplessness, changes around the body, and just think, you know what? It's quite nice to know what my hormonal state, my blood tests are. So you can have like a little blood test. The doctors, the GPs won't do it for you now, but you can have one done and just have a look and think, where does that put me? If they're all coming in that I'm nowhere near menopause, then perhaps I need to leave my husband or something like that and do something else in life. It might be something different. But if you're getting back and you're thinking, my FSH, your follicular stimulating hormone, is the biggest indicator of where you are in your menstrual life. So I call it, it's not your age, it's your menstrual age. And if it's coming in as high, no matter what your age, it's very likely that you're heading towards perimenopause or menopause, you're going that way.
So what's a high number then, or how does it work?
Okay, FSH, I'm going to give you just some very simple cutoffs, but everything is after that. But if you wanted to know your FSH for, say, your fertility for IVF, an IVF clinic would say if your FSH is 10, that's a cutoff when they would do IVF for you. So that gives you a rough idea of the fertility. If it goes up towards 17 to 20, that's indicating that you're rising through and probably heading to perimenopause. If you're 25, 30, you're in menopause. When it gets to 75, well, you shouldn't have seen periods forever and a day. They're gone.
Hopefully not.
So if it's about 11, 12, 13, it's borderline, and it could go up and down from there. So it doesn't mean, if you're feeling very stressed and you're having lots of symptoms and it's that low, I would look that it might be stress, might be other things in your life. But if it's coming towards 17, something like that, 18, you're thinking, I'm not sleeping so well, it could be that you're beginning to get those early symptoms that you can really start balancing your hormones. So that's a really good indicator that that's going on.
So I know that this is a quick sort of review or a list or talking about menopause. So we're kind of moving on fairly quickly. And so I want to now tackle what are some of the solutions that we can offer, or tips that we can offer. Maybe, Alison, you can offer something, share something with us on what you find.
Yes,
what's the attitudes of people towards?
It's really interesting. It's really interesting because what I find, and I guess this is how I kind of got into it, is it's all individual. So first off, you're going to be an individual collection of symptoms. Secondly, you're going to have an individual collection of things that you think might help you. So there are a number of things you could be looking at. You could be, now for me, homeopathy worked. I did that, but you need to go and see a homeopath and they will treat you specifically for the whatever it is that's going on for you. Or you might think acupuncture is a good thing to treat your symptoms. Or you can try, I know that some herbal supplements are good. I know a lot of people talk about, and I think black cohosh is something that probably is more to do with hot and heat and things like that. That might work. You might actually, some people find that Looking at things that they're eating is good. And now I particularly like, there's a group of women, they started in South Wales. They're called the Blue Tits, because what they found was actually cold water swimming actually helped on a whole number of ways. And they just said, you just have to run into the water screaming, and that kind of solves quite a lot of things. So that was good for them. So, or maybe it's another particular form of exercise. Or we quite like backflower remedies as well, because they're quite variety. So there are, and when you, this is the whole why we talk about the importance of planning, because we're kind of thinking, when you look, if you can actually get any information out of your mother or your sister or whoever it was that's gone through it beforehand, that's quite useful. I mean, I didn't get any information apart from this feeling of dread that it was going to be awful. So that was no help at all. But if you can see, it's likely to be a kind of similar kind of experience for you. However, so you're kind of thinking, these are the kind of things I might get. Maybe I'm going to suffer with sleeplessness. What can I do about that? Maybe I'll go to my local health food shop. I mean, they're brilliant. I was in mine this morning, and they've got a whole raft of things that talk about perimenopause and menopause. And those people know what they're talking about. So you could say, this is what I might experience. What have you got that could help? And think about treating those specific symptoms. And then I think that there's a whole raft of resources out there. I mean, you know, Anne's written a book, which is great, called Menopause, Survive and Thrive, which gives you an overview. So start to plan, start to look, and also think about, what do I feel drawn to? So there are some people, now I was one that said, acupuncture, please don't show me a needle. No, don't really want to go there.
Yes.
But other people might think, oh, I've had acupuncture for other things. Maybe that might work. So similarly, me in homeopathy, I've had homeopathy for other things that worked for me. I'm going to investigate that one first. And luckily it worked. The other thing is, don't just try one, and if it doesn't work, think, oh, well, that's it. I'm going to take the medication, because there's a whole number of things that you could try. So the sooner you start thinking about it and think, what am I drawn to? What do I kind of want to know more about? And also, what do I not want to do? So that's as important. So think about it on your own level, and think for you as a person.
Well, let's pick up on that. What do we not want to do in terms of menopause and you know, to avoid it?
I think the philosophy of menopause seems to be, to some extent, that we have a problem to solve. And I would like to turn that around the other way and say, if you remain in balance, you walk through it. It is not a problem to solve. It is like it's like any natural process, like growing. Unfortunately, getting older, it naturally will come through and come through. So our philosophy, my philosophy, the natural philosophy, is we're not solving a problem. We're not trying to hit a hammer. We want to stay balanced. If you can stay balanced, you will walk through your menopause, I promise you. So what we're trying to do is say, what we don't want to do. So I still think it's positive to look at what I like. So when your hormones begin to go out a little bit, right at the beginning, find what works. You know, for some people, it's even as much as deep tissue massage will release enough hormones to create the balance. So instead of looking at it as the problem, how do I cope with the problem? How do I solve the problem? It's more like, how do I stay healthy? What works for me? And it's, you know, phytoestrogens, those sorts of things work well for some people. So as you feel a little bit out of balance, try something and see if it brings you back into balance. If it doesn't, try another thing. And that's why we want to keep at the beginning. Menopause is a whole thing of chaos. One day you can release 4,000 times the amount of estrogen you need. The next day you haven't got enough. It's chaotic. So we're not looking for one solution that will solve it. We're looking at the whole body being able to regulate the hormones by itself. So I think that's
what are your thoughts on oxidative stress? Because I've been looking into this a lot more, and it's a term that not a lot of people have heard of. They know what it is. They understand it once it's sort of explained a little bit more, and that's just oxidation, really.
Yeah.
What are we getting that in balance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important because the whole of the body needs to be in balance. When the hormonal system, if anything else is out, it affects the whole of the hormonal system. And that doesn't just affect estrogen and progesterone. That's all of our hormones. That's the thyroxine. It's every part of our body. And stress is one of the stress hormones that is produced by the body is used to make estrogen too. So we know that stress, any kind of stress, whether that be work stress, the physical body having too many free radicals, as you're talking about with oxidative stress, the body not being able to cope properly because the gut's not working or the liver is under stress, all of these things add a level of stress that will affect the estrogen insulin balance of the body. So I think it's very important for it to be holistically looked at. I think if the one approach of one thing is not always good, but we do need to avoid physical, emotional, and mental stresses, which is where ill health starts from.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that I've seen some research that says in societies where menopause is not quite such a taboo, where it's more of a process that women go through, that women actually suffer less symptoms. So it's almost like in our society, when you start to have these symptoms, I mean, I've seen it a lot where women are kind of like, oh no, I can't be in menopause. I'm not old enough. I don't want to be old. I don't want to do this. So it's almost like you're stressing yourself because you're denying that that's happening. And we don't want to see images of older women in advertising. Apparently, it's like all of those different things, all those creams they will sell you to say you don't have to have men. But now I love these creams, like menopause skin cream. They've discovered it. There's money in that. So you can have it and you look like you're 25. No, it's never going to happen.
No,
now that you mentioned,
yeah,
I have looked at a study actually that talked about how, well, a friend of mine actually shared this information with me, how collagen helps as well to improve menopause symptoms. They talked about, well, improving skin, we know that, improving cellulite, but muscular strength and bone strength. Did you come across anything like that yourselves, or?
I mean, it's certainly true that collagen fades away with menopause, with age, with that aging process. But I think sometimes it's not finding the balance. There's a lot of things that if you keep taking them, it will improve. But there is a point of balance with the body where it can only absorb so much collagen. So if you are short of collagen and you add collagen, the body will improve. If you have enough collagen that the body can use and absorb because you're taking in the right level of supplement, then it won't take any more. So you can't sort of triple it and get to 25. I think you can make I think I could probably do enough. I'm 62. I reckon if I tried really hard, I could get to 61, but I'm not sure I could get down to 41. So I think there's a lot of things in menopause that if you're not careful, and this is where I come back to the balance. If you get the body fully balanced and fully working, it will produce what it needs. When it is in a time of stress and change, it may need more. So let's use an example of pregnancy, for example, a perfectly natural process, but it requires more. It requires more iron to supplement. It requires more oxygen. Lots of things happen in the body, and the body needs a little bit extra to get through. And I think the menopause actually, and then afterwards, it doesn't need all of that. It's done it. So we're in a time of massive change and growth. The body needs more. It's running a bit short of. So it's nice to supplement, to look at it. But I still don't buy into it's broken and I now need to take lots of things to unbreak it. It's once you get the other side of menopause, the body runs just fine, like the other side of pregnancy. It doesn't need that now. It's done this major, it's an enormous change. It's a massive change. And it runs short during that time of change. But it doesn't mean that we're sick and broken. It just means we add to it.
Yeah.
Well,
And I kind of
body
think that
language
the
is
other,
the reason. Sorry.
I was going to say, the other thing that I think is also good to have that thing of that, to celebrate who we are on the other side of menopause, because I kind of think that I always call it embracing your cronehood, because you have to remember that crone originally came from crown. You're the queen, you are the elder, you are the wise woman, you have knowledge, you have things that can benefit, other people. And we've lost that. We've lost that thought that actually older women, older men, whatever, but older women particularly, we've got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and we are the elders of the tribe, and we should kind of just celebrate that. And I suppose I kind of feel like in my 40s, I took up belly dancing. In my 50s, I started running art exhibitions. In my 60s, I started a PhD. It's not the end. Menopause isn't the end. It's the gateway to this wonderful, kind of post-menopause.
Yes, yeah, and that's indeed how we have to look at it. It shouldn't be, my life is coming to an end, might as well just kill me now. But I have a question though, because we want to still get down to, options and solutions and so on. What are your thoughts on bioidentical HRT? And if that is of any help?
You can't have a bioidentical substance patented, because every woman would be then breaking patents.
Okay.
So bioidentical is as close as they can get. So it's still a chemical, and evidence would suggest that it is the same whatever HRT you're having. Now, the most important thing to remember with HRT, it is hormone replacement therapy. So if you are lacking a hormone, and I would still argue with the lacking a hormone, because bodies run properly. Darwin said that this is how bodies run. We go through this, it runs and it comes through. So the fact that it's broken and we need to replace it is a moot point, if you like. So the hormone replacement therapy, if you're really low and people are really struggling and they need a stopgap and they need to get through, it can be useful. Now, what I'm noticing more and more is that people are doing HRT in their 30s when they've got young children and they're still regularly bleeding. And this is a worrying trend, that people are so now worried about facing.
Why are they doing that, do you think?
It's because, I can have my own political reasons why that, but it's really that people are going to the GP saying, I have these symptoms, and the GP has nothing else to give. So they give the HRT. So people are being advised to take it in addition to their own hormones, which is a worrying trend. I think if you're getting towards menopause and you've got a job to do that really is absorbing, you've got to turn up every day, you've got to look good, you can't deal with any of these things or have the time and space, HRT can buy you a little bit of time. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't do the menopause seamlessly underneath. You won't come off HRT and find that menopause has happened in the meantime.
Right.
So you're going to have to come off of it at some point. At the moment, evidence is if you're on it for about 5 years, it seems to make no difference, providing it's hormone replacement and not hormone in addition to. And there's a bit of like, we don't really know after 5 years, but that buys you time to think, what is we describing? What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? When you come off of it, you might find that your menopause has got a lot worse. Whereas it started a little bit, you're now into huge flushes and can't sleep, but you didn't know. So when you come off of it, you can suddenly be dropped into it. You'll be taken off HRT if you're contraindicated with a TIA or high blood pressure or other things. If it's contraindicated, they'll just take you off of it. And if you haven't got a plan, that can drop you into the deep as well. So I think HRT can be a useful, oh my goodness, what's going on? But I think, first of all, you're not broken, you don't need a tablet for life. If you allow your body, it will come through it, and it will come through the other side. But I think in long term, there's no study that would suggest after 10 years that it's safe.
Okay.
I think the other thing to remember is the guy that actually invented HRT, he did it as a reason to actually, because it's to stop women becoming a bit crotchety, and also it's also to keep them looking nice. So that was his actual motivation. And he has there's a story that I read that apparently some gangster went to see this guy, and he said, "Oh yeah, my wife, she's getting a little bit angry and anxious, and she's starting to look a bit, her face is dropping, and so they treated her with HRT." So it wasn't even the woman coming to the doctor, it was the husband. And then after 2 weeks, she was much better. She was much more amenable to his friends.
Yes.
Her skin started looking better. So I'm just throwing that one into the mix. That's where HRT came from.
And I think I chatted with you the other day, and you said men turn into silver foxes and women into sort of old hags or something.
They weren't even a fox in the first place, and now suddenly they're a silver fox. How did that happen?
Oh wow, yeah. And I like your idea that we've got to stop thinking about it as something to fix, but just understanding it's a process, it's a change, sort of from this to that, and we just learn to balance things out, learn how to live with it.
Actually, it's learning about yourself. Women are not taught about their periods as young girls. They're not taught that they shouldn't have certain signs and symptoms. If they're very painful, they're hushed up, they're put on a pill. And it's like, learn your hormonal life, learn your hormonal cycle. But then we can really embrace the menopause, because if we go through it in balance, it's not a problem. We don't suffer. It's like trying to stay thin in pregnancy. It's like ridiculous. It's not
hard to do. Probably not very healthy for the baby either. to be too thin. Now, again, just going back to a bit of solutions. For me, I found, because I went through the menopause, and I found reducing my oxidative stress, reducing my inflammation, upping my glutathione, those things really helped me and to balance things out, and it just everything dampened right down. Any other solutions that you want to offer? Because we're going to have to end in a few minutes. I know we can always pick up this again another time, I think, because this is such a big topic. We can phone in on specifics.
Yeah, and I kind of think the first thing to look at is to look at the difference between coping and correction, because it's like there is, like Anne says, there's a lot of times you might go with some symptoms, so you're expected to cope with them. So if we go back to hot flushes, all right, so if you're a bit warm a few times, if you wake up in the middle of the night, you put your feet out of the bed and you can go back to sleep, that's probably a symptom that you could cope with. But if it gets to the point where you're having to sleep on towels and you're waking up drenched in sweat, then you need to correct it. And then you go and look at correct it. So I think, yes, have that confidence in yourself and think about what has changed. What do I need to address? So I would actually regard it as looking at the different symptoms rather than, oh my God, it's menopause, I can't cope with it. Oh, actually, I'm actually having a problem with my sleep. Well, maybe I should just take sleeping tablets for a week or two, see if that knocks it on the head, see where I'm coming back to. I don't have to take HRT to make me sleep. I might take a sleeping tablet. So think about, what is it that I'm not happy with?
And I think that's really important. I had somebody in their 30s with an FSH of 6, which is very low, very fertile, that was prescribed HRT because she went to the doctor because she couldn't sleep and she's got 3 young children. And he gave her HRT and she got very sick. So I think I'd look exactly as Alison said. If you can't sleep, now, some people manage, you've done very well with your diet and addressing different hormonal stresses. That can be really useful. Some people do really well on batch flower remedies, as we're saying. But if whatever the symptom is, see what you like and have. Now, Alison said, we've only got a few minutes, and there's so many things. My major thing is homeopathy. You can take natural remedies, which are actual herbal remedies, batch flower remedies, bush flower remedies, vitamin supplements. They're the sort of the main 5 things that I would look at, what works for you and what doesn't. Then I would look at perhaps more other things that are a bit more invasive, like acupuncture. Regular acupuncture is very good. Definitely seeing a nutritionist. I think faffing with nutrition can be really dodgy because people get very worried about it. But if you go and see a nutritionist who will talk about oxidative stress, that will talk about the free radicals, and that will help you identify and go through them, they're where I would go on a professional homeopath or a professional herbalist. So there's 5 things I would do at home, and you can look those up. There's books on them. And there's 4 people that I would turn up to and get professional advice. And find what works for you and be very quick to dump the one that doesn't. So instead of an acupuncturist for 2 years thinking this is getting worse, if it doesn't improve quite quickly, it's not for you.
Yeah.
But I would certainly, there's so much out there that will worry people. I would always suggest a nutritionist who can actually look at that and keep an eye on it, because otherwise you'll end up with 25 different things and think that you need all of them and you actually need none of them, and then you're taking more and more. Whereas a nutritionist will be able to keep you on a path, or a professional will keep you on a path. So try the self-help at home, and then try those main 4 therapists would be my advice. So I'm sorry I'm not coming up with belladonna for hot flushes.
Oh, worked for me. Oh, belladonna was fantastic. Yeah.
No, that's fine, because I think what you've provided plenty of information here. I think that people could actually go away with and think, yes, this can certainly help. With various solutions, and as you say, find out what the sort of get to the root cause of the issue and deal with that, and not like several million things trying to make it all work.
And as soon as you find what works for you, all of it will work. So because it's about creating balance, and then the body takes over. If you've got, as you say, too many free radicals and you eliminate that, the body goes, right, now I can breathe. Now I can do it.
Exactly. So eliminating free radicals, oxidative stress, inflammation, and exercise is a good point, I think, too. Stretching. Certainly. Thank you very much, ladies. This has gone really fast and really well. I appreciate the information you've provided. And of course, as I mentioned, both Alison and Anne, they work with, or they own a company called Live Life For Me. So if you want more information, please have a look for their website. And I will try to put that somewhere in the show notes, so that the people have that as well. Great. So I thank you very much, and we'll catch up soon. Maybe we'll have to pick this up again another time and delve into something a little deeper as well.
Yeah, and if some people have come up with particular questions and things like that you want us to look at next time, then that'll be great. But thanks for having us, Linda. It's been really good.
No problem. Actually, there was somebody that said she couldn't join on now, but she wanted to get the information to watch later, which most people will be doing, is watching this later, because they watch it in their own time. But I appreciate your time today, and I thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thanks.
That was Alison and Anne that have joined us today from Live Life For Me, and they offer some courses as well to help you with menopause issues. So I thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we can pick this up another time. Hope you got some value from it. And yes, we will be having some other colleagues talking about menopause and other solutions as well. So stay tuned for that and join us then. So all I can say now is goodbye, and catch you next time. Same time, same space on Strictly Healthy.